Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're rediving back into the chaotic and ambitious world of the late Roman Republic to follow the meteoric rise of one of its most fascinating figures, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, or as we know him, Pompey the Great. Last time, we saw him earn his famous nickname from the dictator Sulla. Now we're going to see how he truly lived up to that title, turning the entire Eastern Mediterranean into his personal chessboard. Our story picks up around 67 BCE, the Mediterranean Sea. Rome's lifeline was in absolute chaos. It was plagued by pirates, and I don't mean the swashbuckling treasure-hunting kind from the movies. These were organized, ruthless raiders who disrupted trade, kidnapped officials, and even threatened the grain supply to Rome itself. The Senate was panicking. They needed a fixer, someone with a proven track record of getting impossible jobs done, and who better than Pompey? In a move that shocked the old guard, the tribune Aulus Gabinius proposed a law, the Lex Gabinia granting Pompey unprecedented power. He was given supreme command over the entire Mediterranean Sea and its coastlines for 50 miles inland. He got a massive fleet, a huge army, and a treasury to match. It was essentially a blank check to solve the pirate problem, and many senators were terrified of giving one man so much authority. They feared he'd become another Sulla, another dictator. But the people of Rome, tired of high food prices and constant insecurity, loved it. The law passed overwhelmingly, and did Pompey deliver? Absolutely. In a display of logistical genius that would make modern generals blush, he divided the Mediterranean into 13 zones, assigning a commander to each. He then swept through the sea from west to east, systematically clearing out pirate strongholds. Instead of a long drawn-out war, Pompey crushed the entire pirate network in just 3 months. 3 months. It was a stunning success. He didn't just defeat them, he was clever. He offered many of the captured pirates land and a chance to become farmers in Sicily. This wasn't just mercy. It was smart policy, turning a threat into a productive part of the Roman world. Pompey's reputation soared to legendary status. The people hailed him as a savior, but Pompey was just getting started. While he was cleaning up the seas, a much older conflict was still smoldering in the east. Rome had been locked in a long, grueling war with Mithridates, the sixth of Pontus, a clever and resilient king who had challenged Roman authority for decades. The current commander Lucullus had made progress but had been bogged down, and his troops were near mutiny. The timing was perfect for Pompey. Another friendly tribune, Gaius Manilius, proposed the Lex Manilia in 66 BCE. This law transferred command of the war against Mithridates to Pompey, piling even more power onto his already formidable authority. This time, even the great orator Cicero argued in favor of the law, praising Pompey's virtue, skill, and good fortune. With the backing of the people and influential figures, Pompey once again got his way. He now held a command that was more powerful than any Roman had ever held before. Pompey marched east, and the war that had dragged on for years was over in a flash. He swiftly defeated Mithridates, who fled to the Crimea, where he would eventually meet his end. But Pompey didn't just stop there. With a massive loyal army at his command and a mandate to settle the east, he embarked on one of the greatest campaigns of reorganization in history. He was no longer just a general, he was a kingmaker, a diplomat, and a city planner all in one. He marched through Anatolia, Syria, and into Judea. He annexed territories, turning Pontus and Syria into Roman provinces. He created and strengthened a network of client kingdoms, states that would be loyal to Rome and, more specifically, to him. He mediated disputes between local rulers, redrew maps, and founded new cities. When he arrived in Jerusalem, he found a civil war raging between two brothers, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. After a brief siege, he entered the city, famously striding into the Holy of Holies in the Jewish temple, a place only the high priest was permitted to enter once a year. While he didn't desecrate it, the act deeply offended many and signaled a new era of Roman dominance in the region. By 62 BCE, Pompey's work was done. He had pacified the pirates, defeated Rome's most persistent enemy, added vast new territories and incredible wealth to the Republic, and organized the entire East to Rome's benefit. He had personally earned a fortune that was almost unimaginable. He was, without a doubt, the most powerful and celebrated man in the Roman world. And now, it was time to come home. His return to Italy was met with both anticipation and fear. Would he march on Rome with his loyal legions as Sulla had done? Would he declare himself dictator for life? The Senate held its breath, but Pompey did something completely unexpected. Upon landing in Brundisium, he disbanded his army. He sent his soldiers home with promises of land and pay, and he prepared to enter Rome not as a conqueror, but as a private citizen. It was a remarkable gesture, meant to show his respect for republican traditions. He celebrated a magnificent triumph, a 2-day parade showcasing the immense wealth he'd brought back. Gold, jewels, captured princes, and banners listing the cities and kings he had conquered filled the streets of Rome. He was at the absolute peak of his popularity and prestige. But here's where the story takes a turn. Pompey, the master of the East, found that the politics of Rome were a different kind of battlefield. He had 2 simple requests for the Senate. First, he wanted them to formally ratify his eastern settlement, or the treaties, new provinces, and client kingdoms he had established. Second, he wanted them to approve the land grants he had promised his veteran soldiers. These seemed like reasonable requests for the man who had brought the Republic so much glory and wealth. But the Senate, led by staunch conservatives like Cato the Younger and even his old rival Lucullus, was deeply suspicious. They saw Pompey's power as a threat to their own authority. They feared that ratifying his settlement as a single package would give him too much personal influence. So, they stalled. They blocked him. They demanded to debate every single one of his arrangements individually. They refused to grant his veterans their land. Pompey was humiliated. He was the greatest man in Rome, yet he was politically powerless, unable to fulfill his promises. He was outmaneuvered in the very Senate he had tried to honor. And this is where another powerful man enters the picture, Marcus Licinius. Crassus was the richest man in Rome, but he desperately craved the military glory that Pompey had in spades. The two men were natural rivals and deeply distrusted each other. Crassus and his allies in the Senate were among those happily obstructing Pompey. Frustrated and isolated, Pompey needed allies, and he found one in a surprising place. A charismatic, ambitious, and deeply indebted politician was just returning from his governorship in Spain. A man who saw Pompey's frustration as a golden opportunity. That man's name was Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar needed Pompey's influence and Crassus's money to win the consulship. Pompey needed Caesar's political skill to get his settlement ratified and his veterans their land. And Crassus, also feeling politically sidelined, saw a way to advance his own interests. And so, in 60 BCE, behind closed doors, these three giants of the age, Pompey, the great general, Crassus, the rich financier, and Caesar, the brilliant politician, formed a secret pact. It wasn't an official position, but an informal agreement to pool their resources and influence to bypass the Senate and achieve their personal goals. This alliance, known to history as the First Triumvirate, would fundamentally change the Roman Republic and set it on the path to its final collapse. Pompey, in his quest to secure the legacy of his eastern conquests, had unwittingly allied with the very man who would one day become his greatest rival. The stage was now set for the final, dramatic act of the Roman Republic. Thanks so much for watching. The story of Pompey, Caesar, and Crassus is one of the most epic in all of history, and we'll be exploring what happens next in future videos. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. See you next time.